Modern Japan and modern Japanese are well known throughout the world for bringing in ideas and concepts from everywhere else in the world, modifying them, embellishing them, changing them somehow, and making them really something uniquely Japanese. What I'd like to talk about today is a concept called Cool Japan. It is an idea that's been adopted by the Japanese government to help proliferate what it is about Japan. I'm joined today by my co-host, Dr. Nancy Snow. Hello, Nancy.
How are you, Tim?
I'm great. Cool Japan. It's a huge issue. The Japanese government has put billions of yen into this. They've created a fund to invest in ideas or concepts or companies who have come up with an idea that's sellable, that's probably going to be able to market overseas and help draw, foreign tourists into Japan.
Indeed, and actually the Cool Japan Fund launched 2 years ago. So that was the end of November 2013. I was actually at the launch in Roppongi Hills, and it was a room full of government ministers, all male predominantly. There was a smattering of women there, including me. Mm-hmm. These Japanese models came out, and they were very solemn-faced, and they were walking like little soldiers. And that told you that Cool Japan was going to be about promoting Japanese fashion, J-pop. There's always a little bit of a kind of a rolling of the eyes when you hear Cool Japan, and there are a couple of reasons for that. Mm-hmm. One is that it's a term that is so ill-defined. What is being cool? It's in the eyes of the beholder. We've talked about that before. But also it's because Japan was slow to get on this bandwagon. So mm-hmm. other countries have done this before. And when you're sort of the last one to show up, when you name it Cool Japan, deriving, say, from Cool Britannia or cool name any other country, every country has its cool aspect.
Right.
It looks a little bit like, well, you're not quite sure how to present
kind of a
your
wannabe,
culture.
kind of.
That's right.
We're striving, we're reaching, we're grasping at.
I was going to say Johnny come lately, mm-hmm. but in this case it might be Takahashi come lately. But it's really been, there's been a sense of urgency around Cool Japan. Mm-hmm. Now, I think 2 years out, it's much clearer what they're doing. The focus is really related to the trade deficit. If you look at the content of product, creative content, the U.S. is the dominant superpower. So the U.S. is not just the military, economic superpower, but by and large, culture superpower. In film, in television.
Dance, movies,
most of
music.
Hollywood now, really, it gets its profit overseas. So they put out films incessantly that will play to a global audience. Japan doesn't do that. Japan is behind, if you looked at, so you've got the U.S. at the very top, the big circle, then you've got the U.K. and France, and then even South Korea has more output internationally with its creative content. Mm-hmm. So South Korea has a Korean Film Council that actually promotes its films, its creative content specifically for a global audience or even a regional audience. Here in Japan, it's such a big market that they don't think beyond the borders. And
well, that's the Galapagos concept, isn't it? It's they have a market here that can be completely saturated with the flip phones or with the web interface or that sort of thing, and the internal market is enough to generate a profit, and they don't need anybody else.
That's right, and yet they're realizing. Of course, they're listening now, to their credit, more to the foreigner's perspective. Mm-hmm. So they're talking to, when I say they, the people at the Cool Japan Fund, they are listening more to those of us who are drawn to Japan. What are we drawn to? We may be drawn to, of course, the creative products that we've experienced overseas, but Japan is really almost in a class by itself mm-hmm. with cuisine.
Right.
Known for excellence in cuisine, even down to the soup stock. We're not talking here just about, say, noodles. If you took something like ramen, well, ramen originates, the noodles originate from China, but Japan made it its own through the special seasoning here, mm-hmm. through, again, that attention to detail and giving a person sort of an awakening of the senses, the texture and the smell
and the economy and the price point and the just the combination of different things inside it.
And the dedication to excellence for its own sake. Even if you're at a little mom and pop place,
Right.
You'll see people just focus in, and it's a beautiful scene for your eyes.
And that is not just evident here in Tokyo. I mean, that spans the entire archipelago.
That's right.
Right.
So this is what they're trying to market now. The knock on Cool Japan Fund is that they're working with a lot of very established companies like Isetan. So Isetan is going to do a big sort of Japanese, almost like a department store in Singapore and have its name on there and promote high-end Japanese arts and crafts from the various prefectures. It sounds great, but the question remains, does Isetan need a government subsidy?
Right.
So there's that question. The other question is the focus that they're putting on profitability. Now, again, the government isn't usually in the business of working directly with a private company's profitability. But the Cool Japan Fund is set up as a public-private partnership.
Right.
When they put the call out for bids, they got about 1,500 so far. But when you look at the actual projects that have been funded, it's a very small number because they're giant projects. So there's a Japan Mall that's going to be built in Ningbo, China, that will cater to the upper middle class, the growing nouveau riche Chinese, and will have, again, higher-end Japanese products. They're doing the same thing in Malaysia. They're going to have a Japan Mall. There's also a plan to have Japanese tea cafes in California and maybe have, in the words of the Cool Japan head Ota, the next Japanese Starbucks. So they're saying, if you're going to come to us, we want to make sure that you know how to carry the flag of Japan overseas, that you will have a passion for what you're doing, and passion translates into profitability. And that third, it will be a platform of sustainability, because the Cool Japan Fund will not be around forever.
Right.
It hopes to sort of put itself out of business by allowing these other companies to proliferate, be so successful that Japan will at least reach a level of maybe the South Korea or France in terms of the global creative output.
Right.
I don't know if it will get there, but that's the hope.
Well, they have a certain amount of funds. It was contributed partially by the government, partially by a consortium. It's a public-private partnership. And what they're actually doing, it's an investment vehicle, is it not?
It is.
To try and identify areas of excellence, areas or products that really shout out about Japan. But there's a little bit of a problem here that I see. And number one, it is, who defines what's cool? Right. And I think it's kind of like when you're talking about the opening of Cool Japan, they're walking around kind of robotic. Maybe that's cool. I don't know, but it didn't strike you or me as very cool. But there are lots of things that are really cool about living in Japan, or about Japanese products, or their intelligence and some of the ideas that they come up with. I don't know if the group itself, probably, I don't even know if they're, the amount of creative energy that is coming in from outside is invested in selecting these investment projects or not. But they've only spent, the second problem is, they've only spent a small fraction of the money that they have earmarked.
That's right. The earmark was in U.S. dollars about $330 million of the most recent figures. So you're right. They still have a lot sort of capital ready to be invested. Going back to the models, that rollout, when it comes to what appeals to people, you have to have an emotional appeal. And that was very unemotional, which I couldn't quite figure. Because when I associate Japan in the minds of people around the world who've never been here, there's sort of a yearning to come to a place like Japan that is seen as so unique and so special and worth traveling to at least once in your lifetime.
Right.
And when I talk about people like that who have Japan in their mind, these are not people who are necessarily your anime, manga, otaku, cosplay types. These are people who associate Japan with a history of really being able to come up on its own, having limited trade for hundreds of years.
Right.
And then when it did bring in things, it made it its own, to its own distinction. So you want to have that essential, that authentic Japanese experience, whether it's modern or it's traditional. But you also want, if Cool Japan Fund ultimately is about increasing the number of tourists to come here to help this economy, which I think it is, then you have to give people a sense that, one, Japan is affordable, because there's a myth that everything is so premium defined here, that everything's luxury,
That's
that
true.
it is unaffordable. And if it's unaffordable in your mind, you're going to avoid Japan and you're going to go to Southeast Asia.
Right.
Two, you're going to go to Southeast Asia and avoid Japan because you're going to think, I won't be able to find anything but Japanese cuisine in Japan. So part of this washoku, this celebration of traditional Japanese cuisine, is that it has left this gap in a person's mind to, can I get a good burger in Japan? Can I try Italian? What people don't yet know is that the Japanese eat a lot of things outside of just traditional Japanese cuisine.
Well, it's got the most 5-star Michelin restaurants, and you can find world-class Italian, Indian throughout Tokyo and probably elsewhere in Japan as well.
What we're aiming for then with that once-in-a-lifetime special trip is that you give a little bit of the Japan virus, mind virus, or meme to those people so that when they return, they will on their own become cultural ambassadors for Japan, because Japan is that special. It is that unique. So even if you come here one time, you may feel like, I've got a little Japan in me now, and I want to let people know about this special place, that it's worth visiting. And it is a country that's been able to remain relatively distinctive. That's not to say that it isn't very westernized, too. It is, with conveniences, but I think a lot of the projected images are often this traditional Japan. And not every woman's in a kimono. So.
We talk about branding an awful lot here on this show, and I think this this concept of Cool Japan is all about branding. And frequently, when you talk to people about Cool Japan, their eyes roll because they've already given up. They don't see the dream being revealed to them in the actions that are being taken. It's not really receiving a lot of good press coverage, and a lot of the things that you and I might think of as cool are not really highlighted as much as we perhaps talk about with our friends and families in the United States and elsewhere in the world.
A couple of years ago, I wrote a paper called Cool Japan is Green Japan. And it was a paper that I wrote before I went to Malaysia to be a visiting professor for a few weeks. The Malaysians love Japan, even the young people who haven't been here. And it's not just the pop market. They like the appeal of ecotourism, if you will. People in their 20s and 30s, they don't have a lot of disposable income to go for premium sake or whatever it may be as part of some of these Cool Japan Fund projects. But what might appeal to them, if you understand your demographic, is to come here and to do some type of sustainable tourism or alternative tourism, something that would allow you maybe to meet with some of these craftspeople, and to spend a longer time away from the bigger cities that so easily can be marketed, like a Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto. Kyoto, too, in terms of attracting visitors. I'm hearing increasingly that a lot of visitors are coming and it's becoming almost unsustainable for the people living there because they just don't even have the room to place the high season foreign visitors. So you want people to come here, but you want them to come here year-round for different purposes. And I don't think that that has quite been thought through, because they've got the problem on the one hand of what is cool. I think they should move away somewhat from that name and distinguish what we mean by Japanese sensibility or Japanese excellence or made in Japan.
Right.
Let's define what that is so that we can stop chasing our tails around, well, it's so hard to define cool, so we're not going to bother.
Right. Well, I think it really worked when it was initially started, Cool Britannia. That seemed to really click.
Yeah.
It was the pop culture. It was the youth movement. It was independence. It was, and the tremendous music that came out of the Spice Girls, and just a lot of great things came out of that. And I think the Japanese are aspiring and reaching for, that kind of a great kick that they got in. Foreign tourism dollars are the easiest and the quickest to hit the bottom line. And it's not just the tourism. I mean, they want to do products too. They want to expand the concept of what Japan is externally. But I think it's also, trying to indoctrinate the Japanese of what it's like to be Japanese. Sometimes they hit it and sometimes they don't. It's like at the opening ceremony when the girls were walking in. I think that was a reference to this dancing troupe, the male dancing troupe, World Order, where you see them in a huge gymnasium and they're marching in kind of a military procession, but they're really, really good at it. They're very cool at it. But just, it's just the fine tweaking. Sometimes you just completely miss your audience. You miss what it is that you're trying to hit. And I'm afraid with I don't know if it's a competitive advantage that the Americans have in Hollywood or in Israel and in their film industry. But yeah, I think there's something that's kind of lacking, that touch that really propels them to make other people acknowledge, not you saying it, but other people acknowledge, that's cool. I like that. I would like to be a part of that. I want to purchase that.
One way that you make people a part of something, buying a product or a service, is that you build into it some type of corporate social responsibility. So in the case of every recipient of a Cool Japan Fund project, there should be a certain percentage that goes into a public fund that supports the next great filmmaker in Japan, the next great writer. I would buy something that was higher priced, that had that percentage of giving back to the Japanese people. Who are the funders of Cool Japan Fund?
Right, it's the Japanese government, I mean, by and large.
So far, the message I'm hearing is that we want these companies to be profitable so that it will come back to the Ministry of Finance and it will trickle down to the rest of the Japanese people. But that's missing that brand touch point of sustainability, and also appealing to young people, because they will buy products. Oftentimes, they tell me, I've worked with a lot of young students, and they say, I like those brands that I know are giving back or doing good things for the environment, or who boycott certain maybe nuclear industries or whatever it may be, that appeal to their social conscience. And so far, that hasn't really been built in. I hope they'll consider that. I just wanted to add that on January 18th, my fellow advisor, Benjamin Boaz, and I will be discussing Brand Japan beyond 2020, because this is an issue that's not going to go away with the Olympics and Paralympics. So I hope that those of you in the Tokyo area will join us.
Well, thank you very much. With that, I'd like to draw today's discussion on Cool Japan to a close. You've been watching Tokyo on Fire. Our issue today has been Cool Japan, what it pretends for the Japanese government and industry also to appeal to foreigners with products, concepts, food, ideas about what it's like when you visit Japan. Please stay tuned.